And Mariam, would you agree with me? I'm sorry to get so informal with the first name basis, but it's the purpose of keeping the flow up here. That nuclear is cool. I mean, you have this portfolio at the most critical windows. We have COP27 taking place in Egypt and Sharm el-Sheikh, and then COP28 coming to Abu Dhabi in the year after. That this is a cool element to have in your mix, but a vital one on the path to net zero, which most people don't even understand. Why is nuclear so important in terms of the portfolio?
Thanks, John. Thank you for all being here with us today. First of all, let's look at the context of energy sector. The energy sector contributes to 2/3 of greenhouse gas emissions. So it is the biggest sector that we have to transition. If we are to achieve net zero by 2050, this is the sector we have to focus on, and this transition must be just and it must be fast. It is really important that we look at the diversification portfolio and looking at solutions that are at hand to us today. And nuclear is one of them. We need to look at energy sources that are clean, that are affordable, and that are reliable. And because of that, nuclear ticks all the boxes. And what we must do in order to reach net zero by 2050, we have to take a two-pronged approach, and this is what we're doing in the UAE. We have to ramp up clean and renewables, and at the same time, decarbonize our hydrocarbons. And this, ladies and gentlemen, takes time and it takes money. We know that because we are in this journey. 16 years ago, it started here in the UAE. We ratified and signed the Paris Agreement. We set up Masdar City to be the nucleus of developing clean and renewable energy. IRENA is hosted here in Abu Dhabi. And going through this journey, announcing the net zero by 2050 before COP26 was a natural step for us. Having COP27 and COP28 in the region are such a unique opportunity for this region to showcase our achievements. And we can say, and I said time and money, so 16 years, we've invested about $40 billion in the UAE. We've invested $17 billion outside of the UAE in over 70 countries. And today we're proud to say the UAE is operating 3 of the largest solar parks in the world at the lowest cost. We have the nuclear plant that is up and running, and once it's at full capacity, it'll be covering 25% of our energy needs. We also have the first industrial green hydrogen plant as well. So we like to see us as trendsetters, and we also understand that this is a transition that takes time and money. We need to look at all solutions at hand, and nuclear is one of them.
Okay, good. I'm going to ask our 2 other panelists to bring those mics close to you because they're very directional, but a quick follow-up to Her Excellency. In that spirit of COP28, and I'd like to tie in this change in the last month after the Russia-Ukraine conflict that we've seen, the impact on energy security as part of the narrative. A month ago, Ursula von der Leyen went to Senegal, and we had at ADIPEC here in November, I chaired the panel with her. They've made a huge natural gas discovery. Well, the European Union message a month ago is we don't want you to invest in your hydrocarbons in natural gas. Then the European Union said, well, natural gas and nuclear is 2 key components of the energy transition here. And also this narrative of the access, it's extraordinary in the 21st century. 750 million people don't have access to electricity on a daily basis. Over 2 billion don't have access to it regularly, but 600 million of them are in Africa themselves. So what influence do you think Egypt and the UAE will have on that narrative of also providing access? And yes, that was a wake-up call in Russia and Ukraine. Are people thinking differently? What are you hearing?
So what your point is a lot of people don't realize, when you talk about availability, that's one thing, but access is another thing. And what we're experiencing right now, John, is as if we've switched off oil and gas. What's happening now? Countries are coming to us saying, no, produce more, do more, because we're not ready yet. Our systems are not ready yet. And this is why I said we need to take this 2-pronged approach. We need to ramp up our clean and renewables, decarbonize, and once it's ready, we then switch and become less dependent on hydrocarbons. Our systems are not ready yet, and what we're experiencing right now is the reality. It's a reality check for us. So we're also understanding that accessibility of energy is yet another aspect. So if you set up a solar park or a wind park, you need to think of how you bring that to the consumers. So when I talk about the systems are not ready yet, we're talking about, so technologies are available, but the distribution, the storage, these are all components that still must be invested in, and invested in heavily.
Good. In my opening comments, Bill, I said that we see a lot of imitation now in the region with Egypt working with Russia, same thing with Turkey, building reactors as we speak. But there's another component here that most in the audience wouldn't know, is that there's a lot of innovation in the sector at the same time. So small modular reactors, does it make nuclear a component that's going to accelerate in terms of ramping up gigawatt capacity in different parts of the world? Do you want to address both?
Sure, John. First, the answer to your question is I think so. But let me take a step back and just appreciate the opportunity to be back in UAE after several years and seeing the great progress on the nuclear program. Extraordinarily impressive, a lot to be proud of here. And I think that the issue that you spoke of a few minutes ago, this issue of access, is extraordinarily important. What we see around the world is a deficit in energy. And what many experts and NGO groups try to say is that our big problem for the environment is we use too much, that we waste too much, and we have to work with less. I think the answer is actually the opposite. I think we have to make more energy available to more people less expensively than we do today. And one way of doing
that as clean as possible.
As clean as possible. Yeah. But one way of doing that is the use of advanced nuclear technology. You spoke of these small modular reactors, microreactors, Generation 4 reactors. These technologies can be, if they're successful, remains to be proven, but if successful, they will be made available to people around the world, extraordinarily safe, proliferation resistant, and cost effective. And if this is successful, we'll be able to combine these small reactors with renewable capacity, and we'll be able to help those 750 million people who don't have electricity, and the 2 billion that don't have clean water, and all the other people who want to save the environment without sacrificing civilization in the process. So that's what I think nuclear can bring to the table.
Interesting. And very quickly, what did we learn from Fukushima from your view? Because you've had your head in this industry for 3 decades. And also, the memory of Chernobyl. So let's cover Fukushima, and because of climate change and the rising sea levels, do you have to be more resilient, think completely out of the box how we build new facilities?
We've learned a lot from Fukushima, and the character of the nuclear sector is to learn from experience. And Fukushima was a big experience, and we did learn that plants have to be more resilient. The ability to recover from even the most unexpected disasters has to be built into every plant. And if you tour Baraka, you will see those kinds of features in that plant. It's prepared for the unexpected. It's prepared to recover from the unforeseen, and that's extraordinarily important. We've learned that lesson. The new technologies are so safe that a Fukushima-type accident would be physically impossible with these new technologies. And that's the answer for the future, to make nuclear more accessible to more people without raising concerns about nuclear safety. Good.
Mohamed Hammadi, I have to thank you again because you let me into the red zone when you finished your construction, and then I got a chance to go first into the first reactor when it went commercial, and now you have the second one up on the table. Address, if you can link this back to His Highness Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed, who said is important in terms of the industrial policy and also very important for future development of the youth. When I went down there, I saw Emirati women working in the control rooms, and they said, I could not be part of this strategy. I had to jump in because I thought it was so important to our future. What is the component of that in your planning and development of talent here, but also how does it fit into the 2050 industrial strategy in terms of lower cost energy?
Thank you, John. That's a great question. if I can take just one step back, the nuclear industry for the UAE, it's a new. So looking back a decade ago, the vision was, how do we create sustainable and secure electricity mix? I remember His Highness Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed in 2006 had a clear vision of we need solutions that's sustainable and that's also provide energy security. Fast forward to today, over a decade, as Your Excellency mentioned, we have 80% of renewable installed in the region here in the UAE. We've managed also to switch on the first 2 nuclear reactors, and we have 2 more also to go. So by 2025, we'll have 25% of our electricity from the nuclear energy. And going back to your point now, specifically on industrialization, His Highness Sheikh Mansour just mentioned that industry will be a key pillar for the success of the UAE. And if I may link this back to 2015 and this World Government Summit, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, he said, we would like to celebrate the last export of the last barrel of oil. And that vision is there and will be accomplished through secure sources of energy and sustainable sources of energy. And nuclear will be a key pillar of that. And other sources of energy. As my colleague mentioned, we will need all kind of forms of energies to be able to grow and prosper as a nation, and nuclear provide that. Today, ENEC provides over 17 billion dirhams worth of contracts to local companies. We managed to employ and develop very highly talented workforce. I'm very proud to say we have 70% of our employees are under the age of 35 years old, very young generation. And one thing also I'm very, very proud of, Unit 2, when got to operate and became operational, a young engineer, her name is Hind Nagbi from Dibal Hassan, she led the team. She learned from Unit 1, so at Unit 2 she went and led the team to switch on that unit. And this is something in a 10 years span, it doesn't happen anywhere in the world. It happens in the UAE because we have the leadership, the right vision, that carry vision to execution and see it all the way through to the highest standards. And that's something we should be proud of as each Emirati in this room.